Another thing that we're going to do while we're under here is we are going to replace the starter. We're going to put a high torque starter, performance starter in there, and it's actually clockable. So I've used one version of it already on the truck, and it had 3 clocking positions, but this one here is universally clockable, so hopefully that one will be even better than the last one I put in. Okay, so one of the things that that I had run into before was see how easy that one turns when I spin it? But this passenger side front caliper locked up from sitting and rusted the piston. So I did take and bleed it and compress the piston to hope that it would free itself up, but it's still tight. I can turn it with the tire on there, but I know if I drive this, it's going to heat up and it's going to lock up on me. So we are going to do the JB7 3/4 ton caliper upgrade, and what it does is it puts a larger, it's the same housing, so you can put it on all your full-size Jeeps, but it's got a larger piston. So obviously you want to match these left and right, so that you have both the same size on the front. But this adds quite a bit of braking power to your front full-size Jeep brakes. So we're going to get started. We're going to pull the old one off, put the new one on, and bleed it. Alright, so what I'm going to be doing next, I'm going to make sure that that these are marked clearly so that I know what they are. Years from now, when I forget what make and model and year this caliper is, I'll have it on here. And now I'm going to set up the vacuum bleeder, and we'll hook up to this and draw some fluid through, and I'll probably jump up top take this caliper out and get busy on getting this thing bled, and we'll be done. Alright, so one of the things that you didn't see on camera is I also, you know, this thing has been sitting so long, and I know I had the rotors turned and all that, but I used a rotary sander, and I lightly sanded off both sides of the disc before putting everything back together. But right now I've got everything marked, I've got everything bled, and so now I'm going to put the tire and wheel back on, and then we'll get to that starter. Okay, so I figured, you know, since we put that JB7 caliper on the full-size Jeep, that is an awesome brake upgrade. I need to take and or in order to do a better job, I need to tell you what's probably going to be the only difference that you'll have to run into, and the only modification that you'll have to do to make this work. And that has to do with this keyway here, because this is a keyway that all of these that I found have, except, yeah, on the Jeep sections you don't have this bottom piece. This actually goes on the Chevys. The Chevy hydraulic brake hose actually rounds out, and it basically captures the brake hose. So you have to grind this bottom edge off. Now the one that I just put on there was the only one that I've seen like this. It did not have the 3/4 circle that most Chevy ones have. It actually just had a little notch at the top, and the rest of everything else was open. So I was able to take and put the brake line right in and tighten it down. However, most of the time you're going to have to grind this section off, or whatever you need to get that Jeep brake hose, the hydraulic brake hose, to go in. Now, one thing that I have done, I've made the mistake of trying to grind this out, and if you nick this seat right here where the banjo bolt bushing goes, it will not seal. So I recommend, after I did it once, to basically put the old banjo bolt back in there to keep you from nicking the seat, you know, screw it all the way in, and that way you can go to town grinding this out. And what these little ledges do is they prevent, you know, like if you're turning left or right and it pulls on the hydraulic line, it supports the hydraulic line fitting so that it can't turn and then basically loosen itself to the point where you'd get a brake leak and then potentially lose your brakes. So when you do the upgrade, be prepared to cut some of this out or trim it so that our Jeep hydraulic brake line fitting sets in here like it needs to. But basically that's all you have to do. And like I said, these come with a piston that's substantially larger than even what came in our J20 pick-em-up trucks. All right. Well, my new starter came in, and there is a difference. Now, this one here has a ignition trigger, and then this one goes directly to the battery. However, on the old one, it was just one big lug, and the contactor is actually inside for the solenoid. So my truck, I just built a jumper between the two, and it's been working fine for like 4 years now. However, I am going to take that heavy load of the starter off of the starting solenoid that's on the fender, and I'm just going to run it as a start or a trigger to engage the starter. So that'll take that heavy amp load off. It'll allow that solenoid to run longer. There is a difference too with the number and size of the starter gear, but you can change the size of the starter gear as long as you maintain the pitch between the teeth. So I believe that that's okay. And also, if you look here, this one has 2 Allens that you can loosen and rotate the starter into any position you want. Now, this is better in my opinion than what I had before, because it gave me 3 options, and unfortunately none of the options were great for the previous starter, but this one here will give me plenty of options, because what I ended up with on the truck starter is I had the option to put it up against the exhaust manifold, which was a no-no, and then about 1.5 to 2 inches away from the exhaust manifold, or to actually put it down low where it hit the crossover exhaust. So there was only one option that would work at all, so I ended up putting a insulating heat blanket on the one that's on the truck. So hopefully this one gets us to where we can just turn it away from the exhaust manifold and not have to worry about hitting the crossover exhaust. So hopefully this one is a better setup, and if it is, I'll comment in the video. So let me go ahead and get started. Also, I am going to make a custom heavy-duty battery cable that'll go to here, because the one that's on there is kind of chintzy, kind of small, so I'll get started on that. Looking at the wiring setup, I decided to go with cables that I already had, just make them longer, shorter as I needed. But the ignition start and then the constant hot from the battery, I did put these together. I didn't have any shrink wrap. I usually have marine grade shrink wrap that I would shrink these wrap to, but this is what I've got, and I'm going to bring it up to the top, and then I'll cut them to size when I land them, one at the hot terminal strip and then the other one going to the starter solenoid. And I have some wrap on there to make it look nice and clean. One thing that the instructions does say that I need at least a 1/16 of clearance before the flywheel and this gear. So I'll check that also while I'm putting it up in place. So I needed 1.5 mil or 1/16 of an inch of clearance between this gear and the beginning of the flywheel, and I've actually got a little over 2 mil, 2.2 mil. So this is going to be good. I don't need to put this spacer in. So I'm going to go ahead and get that bolted up and lower the Cherokee down so that I can connect the hots up top. All right, so this is what I decided to do. Okay, it's this is awesome. I mean, with that small motor, I've got plenty of room even up in the high position, but I'm going to go ahead and rotate it so that it's horizontal, and that way I've got the best clearance, and it's not going to catch rocks or anything, and these connections are accessible if I ever need to get to them. So I'm going to mark the starter to the plate, and then I'll take it all back off and tighten the ring bolts up so that it stays in position. They're two 25 Torx, and so we'll get that in there, and then I'll be able to pop this in here permanently. All right, let's get ready to start this thing. Okay, this is the always hot battery cable. This is the ignition or the start signal from the starter solenoid, and this is the battery. I built new cables, like I said, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with these, but these are indispensable. When I was salvaging out the full-size Jeeps, this thing cuts piano wire, hardened cable, you name it, and this is what I use to cut my large gauge wires, etc. These are Nippets Super Dikes. And no, they are not a Disney superhero. They are actually just a tool, and they're Nippets, like 9.5 inch cutting dikes. So these things are great. So let's go, let's see if this thing's gonna start. These, I'm gonna get too old to fit in to climb up into these Jeeps. Woo! Look at that. So let's let it run, build up some heat, and then we'll see if it restarts, because that was the whole reason I got rid of the old starter. It was running for a while, so everything's hot and heat soaked. Let's get a quick look underneath here. Let me bring my flashlight and show you the routing of the cables and everything. It's away from the exhaust. The starter is away from the exhaust, and the engine block, everything's perfect. Okay, so yeah, you look up in there, the starter, see, it is a small starter, man. I'm so impressed. And it's setting up there high and tight. The cables are routed up over there by the motor mount, and it goes up and away from all the heat. So let's check it and see if it'll start now that yeah. Okay. Let's see. It's in neutral. Ah, look at that. Yep, starts right up. Alright, so it was starter going bad because of heat. And like I said, these starters, the old rebuilds, you know, they might be cheap, they might be 40, 50 bucks, but you're replacing them every couple years, and you don't want to be let down on the side of the highway, or you pull into a restaurant to get something to eat, and then you have to have it towed back to your house. So it's definitely worth it to spend 200, 250 bucks to get a starter that you'll probably never have to touch again. Definitely worth it. A1.